Hello, Agent. Welcome to the first of many SCP briefings on the various anomalies that has been identified by the Foundation. Now, shall we? Oh? Who am I? Well, my identity is not important, but if you must address me by name, you may call me Senior Researcher 023. Now, we have a lot of grounds to cover, so please save your questions till the end of the briefing. For your first SCP introduction, let us take a look at one of the safer SCPs that we have on hand. Well, not necessarily safe, but at least you won't run the risk of dying anytime soon. Today's subject is SCP-220, better known within the Foundation as Two's Company. Object classification: safe. Description: SCP-220 appears to be a humanoid male in his late 70s. The subject appears to be suffering from a type of dissociative identity disorder. As a result, subject alternately refers to himself as one of two distinct identities. Now, it is still unclear whether SCP-220 is suffering from a psychological disorder or is deliberately acting out the role of two persons. Special containment procedures: SCP-220 is kept in an empty condominium estate owned by one of the Foundation's subsidiaries. SCP-220 is under the belief that there are other residents in the property with him, and he should be allowed to persist in this belief. A false bus stop has also been installed outside the building, which has proven very effective in keeping SCP-220 within the perimeter of the condominium. SCP-220 shows signs of trepidation when attempting to venture beyond the building's lobby, most likely due to its suffering from an unknown mobility impairment. SCP-220 is often observed to be seating at the bus stop. This phenomenon usually lasts upwards of an hour before SCP-220 returns indoors. SCP-220's room has been provided with a telephone that is connected to an automated recording service courtesy of the Foundation. The Foundation takes note of the subject's dietary, medical, and recreational needs via the recordings and live feeds attained from the subject's calls. Any requests to modify the automated system should be submitted to Dr. Redacted for approval or denial. SCP-220 has been known to exhibit one of two identities when the subject is out and about. The first identity is that of one Ormond Garibaldi. The second one, interestingly enough, is that of Ollie Redacted. The latter identity corresponds with the name of the subject's birth certificate. Now, the anomalous property of SCP-220 kicks in when an individual interacts with the subject. After interaction, the individual will be fully convinced that he or she is indeed speaking with two separate identities instead of just one SCP-220. Through numerous testings, we have identified two unique phenomena based around this anomalous property. In the first phenomenon, SCP-220 will present itself as either Ollie or Ormond and will refer to the other persona as a close friend or relative. Despite having been briefed about SCP-220's anomalous properties and effects in this situation, Foundation D-Class personnel quickly accepted SCP-220's statements about being two separate identities as facts. In the second phenomenon, SCP-220 will present itself as either Ollie or Ormond and proceeds to alternate between the two identities throughout the course of the conversation. While there is not a drastic change in personality between Ollie and Ormond, our tests recordings have shown that every time SCP-220 switch personas, there is a distinct change in SCP-220's posture, tone, rhythm of speech, and slight personality deviations. However, despite changing personas mid-conversation, Foundation D-Class personnel do not seem to perceive any changes in SCP-220's identity. But instead the D-Class reacts as if the other persona had left the room. In extremely rare cases, SCP D-Class will behave as if they are conversing with both Ollie and Ormond at the same time. Now, after numerous testings, we have concluded that Foundation D-Class personnel never exhibit any fear or distress during and after their encounter with SCP-220. Unfortunately, it seems that the anomalous effects of SCP-220 are irreversible, despite our best attempts at explaining SCP-220's nature to the D classes that has encountered SCP-220. Test subjects have also been observed to display signs of memory loss, often forgetting their purpose in entering a room or even the subject of the conversation that they had with another person. This memory loss usually kicks in after 4 to 6 hours of the test subject's encounter with SCP-220. The disorientation eventually leads to a permanent state of identity confusion with the D class, as they will begin to perceive every person that they come into contact with as two distinct individuals. Affected D class will begin to address every single person as if they are speaking to two people at once, and will often alternate between two distinct conversations. The majority of the D class perceive one of the two imaginary identities as that of a close friend or relative, even if the appearance of the person that they conversing with is drastically different from said friend or relative. SCP-220's anomalous properties seems to be more potent when SCP-220 is in distress. This was observed when SCP-220 sustained a serious bruising while in containment. D-Class 9120 was sent into the building to assist SCP-220 under the pretense of being one of the building's residents. During this time, D-Class personnel 9120 quickly became disoriented by SCP-220's anomalous properties and forgot her original objective of helping SCP-220. Foundation staff sent in D-Class personnel 9002 to retrieve 9120 from the containment site. Both D-Class were quickly quarantined and subsequently euthanized by the Foundation out of fear of spreading SCP-220's anomalous properties. Now, it is worth noting that any individual that observes SCP-220 through an audio or audiovisual recording does not seem to be affected by SCP-220's anomalous properties, on the condition that these recordings do not take the form of a two-way conversation with SCP-220. Interestingly enough, one of SCP-220's personas, Ollie, has on multiple occasions requested to speak to his granddaughter via the telephone provided by the Foundation. All requests were denied by the automated operator, which phrased the denial as number unavailable. Despite the Foundation's best efforts to locate her, it would seem that SCP-220 does not have any records of known family members. SCP-220's secondary effects of contacts were first discovered by Dr. Palermo during Incident 220-P. Dr. Palermo was conducting a psychiatric evaluation on one of the D-Class 7905 after his exposure to SCP-220. During the evaluation, it was discovered that the affected individual's confusion and disorientation increased over time, and, at one point, D-Class 7905 even referred to Dr. Palermo as his own father. Shortly after the evaluation, during the debriefing session with D-Class 7905, Dr. Palermo also began to display signs of confusion and disorientation. Dr. Palermo then began addressing D-Class 7905 as both D-Class 7905 and as his own son. After the incident, the Foundation concluded that the anomalous effects of SCP-220 are highly contagious and can spread via in-person contact or even just making eye contact with SCP-220 without verbalizations. This is why all D-Class personnel, as well as any staff members that come into contact with SCP-220, must be quarantined and subsequently terminated to prevent the spread of SCP-220's anomalous properties. And that concludes your first SCP briefing. Go ahead and take some time to process the information. I will see you again for the next SCP briefing. Enjoy the rest of your orientation. Agent.